Hello everyone and welcome to This Week in ESO, Episode 10. I'm your host Rob from MMORPGcom. The show's finally creeped into the double digits. Thanks for sticking with me this long and hopefully we have more to come. On this episode we're going to talk about server maintenance, ZeniMax brings the hammer, the naked bug, community comment, and that involves gold sinks. But first, let's talk about server maintenance. Today, community manager Jessica posted on ZeniMax's forums that, starting immediately, we have changed the regular maintenance times for the Elder Scrolls Online based on player feedback. The game undergoes regular maintenance to provide you with the best service possible. We've scheduled the following windows for this purpose, although we may not need to use them every week. Cool. Chance of not having maintenance. Fun. For the North American mega server, those are Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Eastern and Thursdays at 8 a.m. Eastern. That's 12 p.m. GMT in case you care. For the European mega server, it's Tuesdays at 6 a.m. CEST and Thursdays at 6 a.m. CEST, which is 5 a.m. BST. We always message maintenances the day before, including a notification if the maintenance is not needed. Most regularly scheduled maintenance periods will last for no more than a few hours. During these times, we'll deploy patches, server optimizations, database updates, hardware upgrades, and perform other routines that keep ESO running smoothly. I don't know about you, but I'm quite alright with 2 different periods that they could have maintenance throughout the week, especially early on. I'd prefer to see them get these bug fixes in. I wouldn't even have a problem if they're doing critical fixes on almost a daily basis this early into the game because there are so many bugs, though they have got quite a few of the storyline ones, so they're not broken. You can actually complete the storyline. Next up is ZeniMax brings the hammer. Also today, Jessica posted that, "Today we made our first major strike against those who chose to cheat in ESO, permanently banning thousands. This is only the beginning of our ongoing efforts to keep the game free from botters, speed hackers, and gold spammers. We want to thank everyone who sent in-game reports about these individuals in ESO. Your reports helped us identify many of the accounts we banned today. Please continue to report any botters, gold spammers, and speed hackers you see in-game, and we'll continue our efforts to keep them out of Tamriel." It's great that they're finally putting bans on these players' accounts. However, a lot of these accounts are actually stolen accounts from players. So that said, everybody out there that's listening to this, make sure you're practicing good security when it comes to your password and you're not reusing it across multiple sites. And I'm sure this isn't something that you haven't heard 1,000 times already, but it's great that they're banning them and taking the effort. I know that I've reported a number of them. I wish there was an easier way to report gold spammers, especially the botters that are hacking. If you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, just go to YouTube and Google teleport hack and ESO, and you will see a person chasing this other player down that's just teleporting from node to node and harvesting them. And it's almost impossible to report them because you have to hold down F and pull the radial dial up, and they move so quick that you almost can't do it. It's a little bit easier if they're sending you the in-game spam through mail. You can reply to that. But again, it's the people that are out there and about actually doing the harvesting that I'm really concerned with. Though getting the people through the mail is great too, because that's quite annoying. Next up is the naked bug. This is a funny one. If you haven't seen it already, make sure you go over to Reddit. It's trending over there. There's people running around, and basically they're Kens and Barbies, which I guess I'd prefer to have that than them be anatomically correct. But at the same time, it's still disturbing. Once you see it, you cannot unsee naked orcs. That's all I'm going to say. Next, let's talk about gold sinks. There are a number of gold sinks in this game, and I think some of them are probably a little bit heavy-handed. First, let's talk about the gold sink on the auction house. There's a 15% listing fee and a 10% cut. So that's a 25% total of the sales price of your game. 25% total of the sales price of your item is going to be taken by the game. That's a ton of money. You're also limited to 30 listings across 5 auction houses. That's not 30 listings per auction house. That's 30 listings total across all 5 auction houses. So the guild store is already horrible. So It's almost not even a big deal because it's so cumbersome to use the guild store with its current interface. They really need to make a keyword search. I don't really understand how it made it out the door without that. The auction house to me almost seems like an afterthought. Like they really just wanted to push player trading through chat and through guilds, and then they were like, hey, let's throw a guild auction house in too. I've said it before, I'm not a big fan of the idea. I do see a lot of people doing trade in chat, which is great, but with the single server, it's kind of like, how many people are you actually talking to, because how many different instances are going on of the zone you're in. It doesn't seem to me like it's working that well. I really wish that they would have a different auction house, but I'll get off my horse on that one. Speaking of the auction house, that brings us to the community comment, which in fact still deals with gold sinks, but this is from We Mad Aggie. I joined a merchant guild in game to have a place to sell my stuff, and the revenue cuts are astronomical. On top of that, it said X% goes to the guild store. Naturally, I immediately rolled up my own merchant guild to test to see if the revenues go to me instead of going to some stranger. Of course, it turns out that the percent cut to the store is fictitious and just a cute way of saying money sink. There are still some perks to running your own merchant guild on the side, which are, you have effectively your own private guild bank, not a small consideration given the inventory requirements of ESO, and this is your primary return for putting in the time to recruit and manage the guild. You have a trade chat that's under your control, i.e. I'm not putting up with assholes because it's private and house rules apply. It does require you to put in the time into recruiting, which is basically a max 500 member Zerg guild, with all that implies, and much to the chagrin of certain bunched underwear wearers and zone chats everywhere. You have to continue recruiting efforts. If your membership drops below 50, your store closes, and the more people in the guild, the bigger your customer base. You can open the guild store sales to the public, but only if you own a keep in Cyrodiil. And someone who doesn't PvP, this irks me tremendously. I'd like to know if there are any other aspects of the guild functionality I haven't considered, and how do I go about getting a keep quickly with minimum PvP involved. So listeners, if you have an answer to Aggie, let us know in the comments below. I obviously wholeheartedly agree with her on a number of the issues. I think that bank storage is another gold sink, and it's very limited, especially for the amount of things that you get to gather in this game. It's where are you going to store everything? But anyways, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. I took what should have been a 5-minute show, and I think we're probably pressing towards 10. Thanks for bearing with me. But we can keep this conversation continuing on social media. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Graculen, Grakulen, and I hope to talk to you next week. Have a good one, folks.